Millennials will clasp their faces in horror, but OMG, in the olden days when Netflix was something posh girls did in lacrosse, TV choice was a bit limited.
Back in 1964, there were only 2 television channels, and now it seems like the dark ages.
You have to remember there were only BBC and ITV.
To save the nation from boredom, the BBC decided to launch a new channel, BBC2.
So this is the 3rd channel. It's a big, big deal.
The launch of BBC2 was, of course, a big event in the corporation's history.
This was actually the opening night of what was to be our 3rd television channel, BBC2. Everything was all set up for the big celebration programme.
And there is nothing bigger for a TV host than being asked to launch a channel.
I was invited to be the presenter of what should have been the first programme on it, a programme called Line-Up.
BBC2 was to be transmitted from TV Centre down in White City, West London.
We rehearsed that little programme in the afternoon, over and over and over again. It was rehearsed almost to death. And then everybody broke and went off to the club for a drink. And I was nervous because I was going to be the first person on. And I came back earlier than I needed to and wandered into the production gallery next to the studio and thought, things are a bit dark in the corridor. And the screens were dark. And I thought, maybe it's a test to turn them all off and then turn them all on again. And then I heard somebody running down the corridor, and it was the senior engineer, saying, it's a disaster. There's been a power cut at Battersea.
You've got the BBC2 supposedly going to come from the new TV centre, but then there's some kind of power cut at Battersea which knocks out all the possibility of filming it from there.
The failure to launch was a huge shock to everybody who was gathered at Television Centre. And there was a party going on the ground floor hosted by the head of BBC2, which became a candlelit party.
So they decided, OK, we'll do it from Ali Pali. But the problem with Ali Pali is that all the staff are at TV Centre, not at Alexandra Palace.
Alexandra Palace, which was in a different part of London and was not affected by Battersea Power Station's power supply, was able to put out this short piece.
The untimely power cut pulled the plug on Dennis's big moments, but the channel needed something to broadcast, so newsreader Gerald Priestland was chucked right in the deep end to present a news bulletin and take the honour of being the first face on BBC2.
You end up with a guy sitting at a desk and no programmes to put on.
Jerry was the first face, accidentally.
Unfortunately, it continued to go wrong, as viewers could see him but couldn't hear him.
Whenever you do something new in TV, you're liable to have a few mishaps.
Eventually, sound and vision were reunited.
Well, good evening. And as I said a few minutes ago, and I understand nobody could hear me, welcome to BBC2 from where it all began, here in Studio A in Alexandra Palace.
He looks like a very young John Cleese. And if you see that bit in isolation and you don't know that this went on, you would assume it was something from an undiscovered Monty Python sketch.
After free beer was distributed to workmen at the topping out of the new Nottingham University building, the contractors closed down the site for the rest of the day. A spokesman said the men were rather light-hearted and it was thought to be in their best interests. The building is 186 feet high.
The guy on the desk who was sort of holding it all together, it couldn't have been scripted more, and it was just totally ridiculous. He had the right cardigan for the job.
Excuse me.
And then the phone rings, which it always used to do. Whenever there was any trouble, the phone would ring and you go, oh, it's all right, the phone's ringing.
Just like Channel 1. Hello?
So he picked up the phone and goes, hello?
Unlike Channel 1, there's nobody there. Some tape handed to me now. Widespread electricity failures reported in London tonight.
Typical British embarrassment.
Nobody there either. Like sort of, my life is hell and now you're witnessing it.
The power failure halted underground trains. Let's try again. Hello? Yes?
If this kind of thing goes wrong now, most television hosts and presenters, we have an earpiece and someone in a gallery somewhere is screaming at us, do this, do that. And so you've mastered the art of looking calm, looking at the camera while someone's telling you, keep waffling, there's a power failure.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, of course, you had to pick up the telephone and find out what on earth was going on.
Right you are. Right. Goodbye. As you can imagine, there's a good deal of rushing about going on behind the scenes.
The announcer is just stumbling on.
Well, that is all for the moment, I think. Anything else?
He was looking back for help to these guys at the back who were just hiding under, just all covered in BBC shame and embarrassment.
Gerald Priestland went on to be the BBC's chief America correspondent.
That's all we have for the moment.
But he'll sadly always be the first face on a botched BBC2 launch night.
The massive opening, it is like, instead of it being a bang, it was a whimper.
The next day, it was the big story. It was the front page story, power cut, ruins BBC2 opening night.
So the next night, Dennis Toohey starts and does the official opening a day late.
And we thought, what are we going to do about this?
The BBC could have turned it round and made it hilarious.
And so we devised this little gimmick of a candle on a desk in the studio. And when we got to the appropriate time, I would walk in, pick up the candle, blow it out, and the studio lights, we hoped, would come on.
Good evening. This is BBC2.
They could have done a big launch the next night with lots of laughter and music.
Yeah, it fizzled, didn't it? It fizzled.
Although Dennis went on to be a regular current affairs and ITN news host, he missed out on the glory of hosting the first show transmitted on BBC2.
Earlier in the day, Play School, the children's programme, had gone out. So it was the first complete programme to get on air.
So Hamble and her friends got to win the day.
Here's a house. Here's a door.